Okay, looks like it's right at noon, so we can go ahead and get started. How is everyone? Good afternoon. The time is now 12 noon, and I will call the meeting of the District of Columbia Board of Ethics and Government Accountability to order. This is our April 2022 meeting. I'm Norma Hutcheson, BEGA Chairperson, and due to COVID-19, this meeting is being held virtually via WebEx. Joining me today for this meeting are Charles Nottingham, Melissa Tucker, Felice Smith, and I don't see Mr. Sobin, but I'm sure he's on the way if he's not here yet. Together, we constitute a quorum for this meeting. And since the agenda was first posted, there haven't been any changes to it, but please take a minute to review the agenda and then let's have a motion to adopt the agenda.
I would like to offer the motion that we adopt the agenda.
And is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and second that we adopt the agenda for today's meeting. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? I hear no nays. Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes from our May 3rd, 2022 meeting. Please take a minute to review the draft minutes, and then I'd also like a motion to adopt those minutes, to approve those minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second that motion.
Great. Are there any comments or suggestions? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes from the March 3rd, 2022 meeting, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? Okay, hearing none, those minutes are approved. The next item on our agenda is a report from the Office of Open Government. We'll hear from Director Allen, who will provide a report on behalf of the office, and she's appearing via WebEx. Director Allen, please proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairperson Hutcheson and members of the board. I am Niquelle Allen, Director of Open Government. I am pleased to present this report on the activities of the Office of Open Government. Since the last board meeting, the OOG has continued to fulfill its mission of ensuring that all persons receive full and complete information regarding the affairs of district government and the actions of those who represent them. I'll start with Open Meetings Act and Freedom of Information Act advice rendered by the office. Please excuse my voice. I'm having allergy issues this week. And if you can't hear me, please let me know.
I'm sorry, can I just interrupt for a minute, Niquelle?
Yes.
This is Darrin Sobin. I've been on this call, so I'd like the record to reflect that I was on time and on the call. And we need to fix this because it is a consistent problem every single month. I can't get on, although I'm on. I don't know if it's I'm being sent something as a participant as opposed to a panelist, but please take care of it. Please. I'm sorry to interrupt, Niquelle, but it's just very frustrating.
Right. We will work on it. We will make sure that this is resolved by May, which will be my birthday month. So I'll make it my personal responsibility to make sure that on the May 5th meeting, you're there properly. Remember, so
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
So I'll start with advisory opinions issued by the office. First, a DC Council Open Meetings Act complaint dismissal. On March 14th, 2022, I dismissed OMA complaint number OOG-2022-002M concerning whether a committee of the Council of the District of Columbia, when comprised of less than a quorum, is subject to the Open Meetings Act, is a public body subject to the Open Meetings Act. The committee hearing that was the subject of the complaint did not comprise a quorum of the entire DC Council. Therefore, we found that it was not a meeting subject to the Open Meetings Act. The constituent complained that they were unable to present a remote comments at the meeting. I did not opine on the merits because the gathering was not a meeting under the OMA. The next advisory opinion issued was a text messaging sua sponte FOIA advisory opinion. On March 16, 2022, I issued advisory opinion number OOG-2022-001 on the applicability of DC FOIA to text messaging, including ephemeral contact applications such as WhatsApp, used to conduct government business. The advisory opinion clarifies that all texting protocols potentially generate public records that are subject to DC FOIA. I recommended that the mayor issue a mayoral issue to, one, recognize that text messages concerning government business are public records, even if they're stored on a public device, that the order should ensure retention of those records, that the order should discourage employees from sending or receiving official text messages with personal devices. The order should require employees in instances where personal devices are used to transact public business to separate and retain those records, to require employees to attest to their search efforts and respond to DC FOIA requests, and prohibit the use of ephemeral text messages, and that's messages like WhatsApp that disappear, to conduct government business. The next advisory opinion issued was an Open Meetings Act request for reconsideration, which we denied. On March 29th, 2022, I issued advisory opinion number OOG-2021-007.1M in response to a February 9th, 2022 request for reconsideration, amended complaint, and prospective complaint submitted to the OOG for consideration after my January 5th, 2022 dismissal of an Open Meetings Act complaint. The advisory opinion set forth the following justification for the dismissal, and this was in regards to the Historic Preservation Review Board. The reconsideration requests and complaints raised issues that were dismissed concerning the complainant's August 10th, 2021 complaint, the Historic Preservation Review Board's distribution of the record of action summaries do not violate the OMA, so it's unlikely that another OMA violation will occur in the future. And a record of action summary, as you may recall, is something that this public body keeps that is not part of the Open Meetings Act. There is no legal basis to enjoin the record of action summary distribution by the Office of Planning because it is unlikely that a prospective OMA violation will occur. The OMA violation and its regulations do not authorize a complaint to be amended after its dismissal. The OOG's enabling legislation authorizes reconsiderations only when the Director of Open Government issues an advisory opinion of her own initiative, which I did not do this time. The request for consideration does not concern an advisory opinion that was issued of my own initiative. And copies of these opinions are in Dropbox for your review. The next item are informal Open Meetings Act and FOIA advice rendered by the office. Since the last board meeting, OOG responded informally via email or telephone to requests for assistance as follows. We responded to 5 requests for Open Meetings advice, 5 requests for FOIA advice, and 38 requests for technical assistance with open-dc.gov. The next item is training and outreach. First is the Attorney General ethical and effective advocacy in mediation training. On March 8th, 2022, Attorney DeBerry attended the ethical and effective advocacy mediation training presented by OOG. The discussion focused on the importance of mediation advocacy skills and the benefits of mediation. The training was facilitated by the Honorable Eric T. Washington and the Honorable Jerry Summers. DC FOIA 101 basic training. On March 10th, 2022, Attorney Wild presented DC FOIA 101 basic training to the staff of the Executive Office of the Mayor. The training was well received. Chief Counsel Barton and Attorney Berry attended the training. The next item is the DC Open Government Coalition Sunshine Week Summit. On March 16th, I, along with Chief Counsel Barton and Attorney DeBerry, attended the DC Open Government Coalition Open Government Summit focused on MPD, transparency, and accountability, which this office also co-sponsored. The event focused on transparency and accountability issues related to DC MPD. The organization's president, Thomas Sussman, asked Chief Robert Conte questions regarding access to MPD information through FOIA and concerning making public officer disciplinary records publicly available. I also presented closing remarks that highlighted the OOG's efforts this year to ensure transparency under both FOIA and the OMA. The next item is the Washington Council of Lawyers Litigation Skills Series. On March 16th, Attorney DeBerry and Attorney Orji remotely attended the Washington Council of Lawyers Litigation Skill Training entitled Drafting Client Declarations, Who, What, When, Where, and Why. The presenters gave tips on drafting effective declarations and provided guidance on how and when to use a declaration in litigation. Alcoholic Beverage Regulations Yearly Open Meetings Act Training. On March 24th, 2022, Attorney DeBerry conducted a remote Open Meetings Act training for members of the Alcoholic Beverage Control Board. The training was well attended, and Chief Counsel Barton also attended the training. The District of Columbia Bar and Office of the Attorney General Joint Ethics Training. On March 29th, 2022, Chief Counsel Barton, Attorney DeBerry, and Attorney Weil attended the March Madness Legal Ethics Training presented by the DC Bar and OAG. Facilitators conducted a review of ethics issues regularly confronted by government attorneys throughout the training. Attendees were able to submit responses to factors that were discussed.
Excuse me, Director Allen, if you are not muted, please mute yourself while you're not speaking. Thank you. Go ahead, Director Allen.
Thank you. The next item is leading a resilient team and organizational development webinars. On March 29th, 2022, Chief Counsel Barton attended leading a resilient team and organizational development webinars through the DC Office of Human Resources. The goal of these trainings was to inspire district managers to be stronger as an individual, strategic as a team leader, and successful at building a team of dedicated public servants. The last item in this section is the DCRA Occupational and Licensing Administration Open Meetings Act training. On March 31st, 2022, Attorney DeBerry presented a remote Open Meetings Act training to DCRA's OPLA Administrative Point of Contact. Attorney DeBerry responded to questions on best practices for informing the public of meetings, preservation of records, and the proper protocol for conducting meetings. The training was well received, and Chief Counsel Barton also attended. The next item I have to report is the litigation and legislative update. First is litigation. The DuBose lawsuit regarding the Board of Dentistry resumes, experts, complaints, and decisions. On January 20th, 2018, Tamel DuBose DDS sued the district under DC FOIA, seeking certain records from the Board of Dentistry and challenging the assessment of fees. The matter remains in the Court of Appeals. The court heard oral argument on November 30th, 2021, and a disposition in this case is pending. The next case is tax analyst and Davis FOIA lawsuit regarding other statute exemption 6 applicability to DC Official Code Section 47-4406 private letter tax rulings. On March 23rd, 2020, the company tax analyst and individual Aaron Davis, collectively requesters, sued the district concerning their request for private letter rulings which provide guidance on district tax law, but arguably turn on personal facts of particular taxpayers. Requesters lost in Superior Court but have appealed to the DC Court of Appeals. The case was argued on March 8th, 2022, and the disposition is pending. The next item is TPM lawsuit regarding preliminary budget requests. On July 13th, 2020, Terrace, Plavick, and Millen sued the district under DC FOIA, alleging that the district failed to produce and post online various budget-related documents to the office regarding the Office of the State Superintendent of Education in DC Public Schools. This case also remains pending in the DC Court of Appeals. The Judicial Watch FOIA lawsuits regarding the records are coming out of the Capitol insurrection. On March 19th and May 21st, Judicial Watch filed complaints in Superior Court seeking specific information on DC FOIA requests from the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner and Metropolitan Police Department. Judicial Watch sought certain records pertaining to the Capitol insurrection. On March 23rd, 2022, the parties agreed to dismiss the matter in response to a March 4th supplemental production of records responsible to Judicial Watch requests. A copy of the stipulation of dismissal is in the Dropbox. The next item is a Washington Post FOIA lawsuit regarding records arising out of the Capitol insurrection. On June 23rd, the Washington Post legal entity, Washington Post Company, LLC, sued the district in Superior Court for declaratory and injunctive relief under DC FOIA. The Washington Post seeks certain records related to the Capitol insurrection. The Superior Court dismissed in part the Post claims number 1 concerning the mayor's email records, but the balance of claim number 1 concerning the mayor's WhatsApp messages and other claims remain contested. Judge Williams has placed that case into a mediation track at the request of the parties, and the mediation is set for August 18th, 2022, and the mediation notices are in Dropbox for your review. Phillips Section 1983 lawsuit alleging MPD watch list is the next case. On February 2nd, 2022, criminal defense lawyer Amy Phillips sued the district in federal court, alleging that the Metropolitan Police Department maintains a watch list targeting certain DC FOIA requesters. On March 11th, the district moved to dismiss. The district argued 1, lack of standing, that her alleged injuries are based on future hypothetical FOIA requests. 2, a lack of a constitutional error. Example, FOIA claims aren't properly brought under the First Amendment, and even if they were, this alleged watch list would be content neutral and minimally inhibitive. And 3, she did not allege that a municipal policy or practice caused a constitutional tort. On March 23rd, Ms. Phillips filed her opposition to the district's motion to dismiss. She argues that she has standing to sue because she still has outstanding requests awaiting future responses, and in any case, a completed violation of a legal right warrants at least nominal damages. While pending requests, future responses were not specifically pled in her complaint, she can amend her complaint, or the court can take judicial notice of her pending request's existence. Secondly, she argues the underlying FOIA basis for her complaint remains a viable ground for a constitutional claim, notwithstanding there is no exact constitutional protection of a right to receive a public record. The district misarticulates the standard, and an MPD watch list does not satisfy strict scrutiny. Regardless of a showing of the municipal policy as being responsible for the abridgment of rights, she adequately pled that MPD has effectively adopted a custom whereby it never treats a controversial FOIA request fairly, and the watch list is currently an ongoing posture. The district motion to dismiss, the district's memorandum in support, and Ms. Phillips' opposition are in the Dropbox. The district's reply was due on April 16th. OOG staff will continue to monitor these cases, and we will report on them as they develop. The next item is legislation. Bill 24706, the Board of Ethics and Government Accountability Debt Recovery Amendment Act of 2022. On March 9, 2022, Councilmember Nadeau, Chairperson of the Human Services Committee, introduced Bill 24-706, the Board of Ethics and Government Accountability Delinquent Debt Recovery Amendment Act of 2022. This bill authorizes BEGA at its discretion to transfer and refer delinquent debts associated with settlements and judgments for ethics and open meetings violations to the Central Collection Unit for collection for the funds collected to be deposited in the Ethics Fund and Open Government Fund instead of the General Fund. The bill is necessary because presently the Delinquent Debt Recovery Act requires all district agencies to transfer and refer delinquent debts to the Central Collection Union within 60 days after a financial obligation becomes a delinquent debt. This measure was referred sequentially to the Committee on Human Services and the Committee of the Whole, with comments from the Committee on Business and Economic Development. As you know, on April 6th, the Committee on Human Services held a public hearing on the measure. Director Cooks and I testified in support of the bill. The record will close for any further written testimony on April 13th, 2022. The next item is Bill 24-0692, Fidelity and Access to Government Communications Clarification Amendment Act of 2022. As reported last month, Bill 24-0692 was enacted by the Council to clarify that communications created or received electronically in the course of official business may be subject to the existing record retention obligations. This measure became law on March 28, 2022, without the mayor's signature, and will be effective through June 25, 2022. At the March 1st, 2022 legislative meeting, the council passed on first reading a substantially identical temporary measure as a non-germane amendment to Bill 24-691. It's April 5th, 2022 legislative meeting. At this meeting, the council passed on consent the temporary measure containing the amendment. A copy of the legislation is also in Dropbox, and OOG staff will continue to monitor this legislative activity. The last items I have to report on are administrative matters pertaining to the office. First is the paralegal specialist position. The OOG paralegal specialist position that was advertised through DCHR closes today, April 7th, 2022, and we look forward to interviewing candidates and hopefully getting paralegal on board very soon. The next item is the BEGA office reopening. BEGA's office have reopened to regular operations, and we did so on February 28th. BEGA's employees are in the office working at the very building for a minimum of 2 days a week and teleworking for 3 days a week. Next, the budget performance oversight hearing, as I referred to earlier, on April 6, 2022, I, along with Chairperson Hutcheson and Director Cooks, presented testimony on behalf of BEGA. My recommendations included that the council provide funding for an OOG fellow and fund record digitization. The next item is BEGA's office relocation. We are finalizing plans with the Department of General Services for the relocation of our current offices to a leased facility on 15th Street Northwest. Director Cooks and I met with DGS on March 17th to review design plans for the new facility, and BEGA's administrative staff also met with Director Cooks and I on March 31st to discuss a plan for telecommunications in the new facility. Last item is the BEGA server relocation and website redesign. On March 24th, 2022, Director Cooks, IT specialist Kavan Bridges, and I met with the Office of the Chief Technology Officer web team to discuss redesigning BEGA's website to make the website more user-friendly. We also discussed migrating portions of OOG's website, specifically the advisory opinions, to BEGA's main site and to be on Octo servers to free up space on open-dc.gov and make it more secure. So our next steps are to secure an MOU with Octo for the redesign of BEGA's website. And this concludes the Office of Open Government's April 7th, 2022 report. Please let me know if you have any questions, and thank you.
Thank you, Director Allen. Questions for Director Allen? Okay, hearing none. Our next item on the agenda is the report from the Office of Government Ethics. Also appearing via WebEx is Director Cooks, who's the Director of the Office of Government Ethics. Director Cooks, please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Hutcheson and members of the board. I'm Ashley Cooks, the Director of Government Ethics. I'm pleased to present this report on the activities of the Office of Government Ethics, OGE. First is an update on the status of OGE operations. The information reported today regarding OGE's cases will not reflect any status changes that may occur as a result of actions taken by the board during today's meeting. First is open investigations by status. We have 56 open matters. One matter that is open pending negotiations for a total of 57 matters. We have 7 undocketed matters. For pending state investigations by status, we have 29 matters that are closed pending collection, 4 matters that are stayed pending DC Superior Court case, 5 matters stayed for OAG False Claims Act case, 7 matters that are stayed for an OIG investigation, and 1 matter stayed for a U.S. District Court case for a grand total of 46 matters. For regulatory matters by status, we have 33 matters that are closed pending collection, 9 matters that are open, and for a grand total of 42 matters. We currently have 57 open investigations with 17 matters stayed. The number of open preliminary and formal investigations includes 14 new matters open since the last board meeting. The investigative team resolved 7 matters since the last board meeting. Next is training and outreach, professional development trainings attended by staff. OGE staff took advantage of the following professional development trainings. Senior Attorney Advisor Tran and Attorney Advisor Eccles both attended the Office of the Attorney General's DC Bar Legal Ethics Training. Attorney Advisor Eccles also completed Ethical and Effective Advocacy and Mediation. Attorney Advisor Jones completed the Campaign Legal Center's Stock Act training and the Executive Office of the Mayor's Annual Donations Training. General Counsel Raj attended Breaking Through Government Communications in the Age of Clutter and Misinformation, hosted by the National Association of Government Communicators. Investigator Bradley completed the Role of Ethics and Compliance program and What If, a reporting unethical behavior venue. Investigator Corrales attended remote investigations conducted by Wicklander and Zulawski and Associates. Auditor Chaduba completed number 1, 5 rules for clear business writing, 2, readability in business writing, 3, keeping business calls professional, and 4, developing a personal accountability framework. For trainings conducted by staff, since the last board meeting, OGE attorneys conducted 9 ethics trainings, which included the monthly training. The other trainings included a monthly Hatch Act training, Donations Act training along with Serve DC, Boards and Commissions training for the Alcoholic Beverage Control Board and Events DC, General Ethics training for Events DC and the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs, and outside employment training for the Alcoholic Beverage Regulation Administration. Attorney Advisor Eccles and Program Specialist Kozik gave a DC Code and LRE file system training that was attended by 19 attendees. Last week on Monday, March 28th, we hosted our monthly Ethics Counselor virtual brown bag session, and the topic was outside employment. Supervisory Attorney Stuart Mitchell provided a thorough presentation of the 10 prohibitions under Section 1807 of the District Personnel Manual before taking questions. The event was well attended. 172 employees completed our online ethics training via PeopleSoft. Next is the Learning Management System. Beta testing commenced this month on OGE's new Online Learning Management System, LMS. The LMS will assist OGE in its mission to provide ethics training for the district government's 34,000 employees and public officials. The LMS will serve as the central location for on-demand ethics training and training materials. Employees will have access to trainings that address ethics topics such as becoming an ethical leader, receiving gifts, developing an ethical culture, ethical decision-making, as well as ethics rules such as outside and post-employment, conflicts of interest, and nepotism. A group of ethics counselors and OGE employees are participating in beta testing of the system, and they're providing meaningful feedback that we can use to make final adjustments before the LMS is available to district employees. We anticipate rollout by the middle of this month. Next is outreach. Director Allen, IT specialist Kayvon Bridges, and I met with the Office of the Chief Technology Officer's OCTO's website development staff to discuss improvements to the BEGA website, As noted at a prior board meeting, As noted at a prior board meeting, Senior Attorney Tran and I met with the staff of the Office of the Campaign Legal Center to obtain recommendations for implementing transparency upgrades to the BEGA website. We are awaiting Octo's cost estimate before moving forward. Next is advisory opinions and advice. First, informal advice. OGE's legal staff provided approximately 42 ethics inquiries, which is 13 more than the 29 that was reported at the March meeting. This number does not include responses that we have provided to questions regarding the lobbyists and FDS e-filing systems. OGE has not drafted any advisory opinions since the last board meeting. Next, our legislative updates. Yesterday, Director Allen and I testified in the public hearing for Bill 24-706, the Board of Ethics and Government Accountability Delinquent Debt Recovery Amendment Act of 2022. The Delinquent Debt Recovery Act of 2012, the Debt Recovery Act, requires government agencies to forward any uncollected debt over 90 days owed to the Central Collection Unit, CCU, and the funds collected are deposited into the district's general fund. OGE recommended amending the Delinquent Recovery Act to allow BEGA at its discretion to transfer and refer delinquent debts associated with settlements and judgments for ethics violations to the CCU for collection, and that the funds collected on behalf of BEGA be deposited into the ethics fund and the OMA fund instead of the general fund. I testified in support of our amendment. A copy of the draft amendment and my supporting testimony were placed in the Dropbox for your review. Next is OGE administrative matters, OGE staffing. BEGA's Human Resources Specialist vacancy closed 2 weeks ago, and the applications are under review by the DC Human Resources and Administrative Officer Dow. We are actively working to fill other vacancies, such as our new Chief of Staff position. The Chief of Staff position was posted on last week and will remain open for 60 days. It is posted on Careers DC as well as Indeed.com. Next is the budget hearing. Yesterday, Chairperson Hutcheson, Director Allen, and I testified in BEGA's budget oversight hearing before the Committee on Human Services. OGE requested budget enhancement requests to hire a supervisory investigator, public information officer, and a legal fellow. The mayor has proposed to increase BEGA's operating budget by $67,016 in local funds and $9,573 in special purposes revenue for fiscal year 23. These adjustments reflect projected salary, step, and fringe benefit costs. A copy of my testimony was placed in the Dropbox for your review. Next is an update on financial disclosure statement, FDS. The 2022 FDS filing season is now underway. All agencies provided their filers list to the FDS team. The team compiled and sorted the list and drafted a notice letter. The mailing list and letter were sent to Total Office Products, TOP, for printing and envelope stuffing. TOP delivered the 3,922 mailers to OGE on yesterday, and the FDS team sent the notices to the DGS mailing facility in the Berry building. Financial disclosure reporting is scheduled to begin on April 14th. Regarding the FDS e-filing system, phase 3 upgrades have been completed. The latest updates are designed to assist filers, enhance the authenticity of filing, and provide OGE staff with better administrative controls and reporting for enforcement. To assist filers, specifically advisory neighborhood commissioners, ANCs, we have provided a checkbox that allows the ANCs to bypass the full questionnaire, taking them directly to the certifications. To enhance the authenticity of the filings for ANCs and other filers, we have added an e-signature so that filers can certify and submit. Staff will now have the ability to add and remove filers and correct information in the system. For reporting, OGE will now have the ability to determine filers and non-filers with a report rather than through comparison of spreadsheets, and can run report queries for those who answered specific questions in a particular manner. Lastly, the upgrades allow us to modify the questionnaire as well as to meet the needs of the agency and for enforcement endeavors. The upgrades are ready to be moved to production for 2022 financial disclosure season. The FDS team are working with Octo to deploy the updates without delay, which may involve a waiver or an MOU. General Counsel Raj is working with Octo's General Counsel to resolve any concerns. As part of the 2021 enforcement, the Office of Pay and Retirement Services recently garnished the filers who were late or did not file at all for the last filing season. The FDS team has been responding to waiver requests and other issues arising from the recent garnishments. For the 2021 enforcement year, OPRS has confirmed that FDS fines for 193 employees totaled $57,900. Lastly, the FDS team is in the final stages of editing the Financial Disclosure Standard Operating Procedure Manual. My last update is on lobbying registration and reporting, LRR. The lobbyists' first quarter 2022 activity reports are due on April 18th. On March 30th, the LRR team sent notices to 450 lobbyists, reminding them of this deadline. As of April 1st, 2022, lobbyists have filed 12 reports. The LRR team identified 6 lobbying entities that filed renewals during March, well after the January 18th due date. The team is currently drafting and processing fine letters. As previously mentioned, Attorney Advisor Eccles and Program Specialist Kosick gave a DC Code and LRR e-file system training. Attorney Advisor Eccles presented on the rules about who must file, who must register and file as a lobbyist when filings are due. Program Specialist Kosick presented how to file renewals, terminations, and activity reports. Thank you. This concludes the Office of Government Ethics April 7th, 2022 report. I welcome any questions that you have.
Thank you, Director Cooks. Are there any questions for Director Cooks? Thank you. The next item on the agenda is public comments. The public was invited to submit comments in writing by 11 a.m. today, and no public comments have been received as of 11:01 today. The next item is a closed session to discuss ongoing confidential investigations pursuant to DC Official Code, Section 2-5B, to consult with an attorney to obtain legal advice and to observe attorney-client privilege between an attorney and a public body pursuant to DC Official Code Section 2-575B4A, to discuss personnel matters including the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, performance evaluation, compensation, discipline, demotion, removal, or resignation of government appointees, employees, or officials pursuant to DC Official Code Section 2-575B10, to deliberate on a decision in which the Ethics Board will exercise quasi-judicial functions pursuant to DC Official Code Section 2-575B13, and to discuss contract negotiation strategies pursuant to DC Official Code Section 2-575B2. May I have a motion to enter into executive session?
So moved.
Seconded.
Perfect. It's been moved and seconded that the board will enter into executive session. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? The motion passes unanimously, it sounds like. It is now 12:39, and we will log out of this session and log into WebEx for the executive session. The session has concluded. We will return to this session to report out any matters decided, finish any other business, and adjourn the meeting. So let's log out of this session. Thank you.
Okay, I made it.
Okay, we are resuming the public meeting. And we have this one item to report out from the executive session. And that is that the board approved a negotiated disposition in the following matter. The number is 21-0046-P. In Ray C. Witt, the board approved the negotiated disposition. That being the case, it was 1:07 when we got back on the record. This concludes the meeting of the DC Board of, I'm sorry.
Chairperson Hutcheson, I think you were a bit choppy when you reported the negotiated disposition out.
Okay, so I will repeat that. Okay, we resumed the meeting at 1:07 and the board approved a negotiated disposition in number 21-0046-P in Ray C. Witt. This concludes the meeting for April 2022. The next meeting of the Board of Government Ethics and Government Accountability will be on May 5th, 2022 at 12 noon. Thank you all and have a good holiday this month. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
folks.
Take care.
See you, everyone.
All the
Take
best.
care. Bye.
Thank you.